You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 224, Breaking Free from Codependency, Perfectionism, and People-Pleasing with Victoria Albina. If you're a business owner who wants to improve your time management and elevate your productivity so you can maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm really looking forward to bringing this episode to you and for you to meet our guest, Victoria. Victoria is a certified life coach, UCSF-trained family nurse practitioner, breathwork meditation guide with a passion for helping women realize they are their own best healers so they can break free from codependency, perfectionism, and people-pleasing and reclaim their joy. She's the host of the Feminist Wellness Podcast, holds a master's degree in public health from Boston University School of Public Health, and a BA in Latin American Studies from Oberlin College. Victoria has been working in health and wellness for over 20 years and lives on occupied Muncie, Lenape territory in New York's Hudson Valley. This episode is for you if you find yourself sabotaging your time management, your productivity, feeling incredibly challenged in reaching your goals because you identify currently as a people pleaser or that you lean into perfectionism tendencies and maybe even have some codependency. This is a great conversation where we really dive into the intersect of how we interact with other people, the labels we put on ourselves, the roles that we play, and how that actually impacts our day-to-day business decisions, the decisions we make with our time. And look, I truly enjoyed this conversation. So without any further ado, I'm going to let you jump right into my conversation with Victoria. Let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk, Victoria. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I think we're going to have a wonderful, deep kind of conversation today that I'm looking forward to. But before we jump in, I would love for my listeners to hear from you a little bit about yourself and why are we talking about codependency, people-pleasing, and perfectionism today?
Yeah, so my name is Victoria Albina. I use she, her pronouns. I live on occupied Muncie Lenape land just north of New York City. And we're talking about these issues because they really are just so vital and they're not talked about enough. You know, they're the habits of thought that keep us looking completely perfect and like everyone loves us. We're so charming on the outside and often so miserable on the inside. And these issues not only impact our sense of self, our worth, our wellness, our health, they impact our businesses.
Yeah. And that's why when I was approached as having you as a guest and I saw this, I hear this quite a bit from clients and coaching sessions of, all right, I know what I need to do, but I'm such a people pleaser. Yeah. Or I know I need to say no to that client. So these are examples. Yeah. Or I get so close to the end of a project and I sabotage myself. And they may not be aware of it using these words, but they sabotage themselves because they're leaning into perfectionism tendency. Right. Yeah. Or projects are taking twice as long because they're circling around the same things. Well, none of this sets us up for really good productivity. No. And I would love to get some strategies about how we can work on, not leaning into those tendencies and behaviors. But before we do, I would love to know, can you just describe in your own words how that shows up and why do you think certain people are people pleasers and certain people have a tendency for perfectionism?
Yeah. So I would actually not say that anyone is a people pleaser, right? Or is codependent. So I steer away from those words as labels because I find them really reductionist to start. And second of all, we believe what we believe because we've had that thought over and over and over again until it actually becomes part of our neural circuitry, right? It literally becomes part of our thinking and part of our brain because we've thought that thought and thought that thought. So I think every time we say, I am codependent, I'm just a people pleaser, right? And we state it as a foregone conclusion. We're actually teaching our brain that that's the truth about us. And I think nothing could be further from the truth. I think we have these thought habits and these ways of interacting in the world because our inner children are geniuses. And because at some point in our growth, in our development, we learned that these habits were a brilliant and amazing way to get through life, to get through childhood, to survive or thrive in the patriarchy, in late stage capitalism, in our family of origin.
Okay,
So,
I love that you don't use a label.
Yeah.
And I am 100% behind you of words have so much power. And so when you start things with I am statements, like I am a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And then it almost leads into, but this time I'm going to try not to. So now we're using words of but, try,
Right.
I am.
Right.
I think we really have a chance of like unwiring this.
Yeah, for sure.
So when we think about this, it's really, I guess, in my opinion, it's the observation that we may have tendencies of behavior.
Yeah.
And then when we observe it, we get a choice.
Right.
And that choice is what? Like, how do we, unwind years of programming ourselves and of how we're raised and really something that feels pretty comfortable. And now at one point we realize it's not serving us.
Correct. Yeah. So I start with awareness, acceptance, action. Right? It is very much the American way to hop to action. As we're heading towards New Year's, all of a sudden, January 1st, all these people who haven't exercised in, I don't know, a whole pandemic are like, tomorrow's the day.
Yeah, everything good happens tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And I exercise starting tomorrow every day for 2 hours for the rest of my life. And it's like, that is no.
Yes, right? I agree 100%.
So we have to start with the awareness, which starts with becoming your own watcher. And we can get into that place through meditation, if meditation doesn't work for you in your body, through mindfulness, right? And really starting to slow ourselves down because so many of us race through life, living really unintentionally, not pausing to really sit in the awareness of these are the choices I make from the thoughts that I have and the feelings that they generate.
When you're referencing mindfulness and this pause and reflection, is this happening in real time? Or do you say, once a day, once a week, that you're kind of looking back and saying, okay, how well did I do on my perfectionism? Or how well did I do people pleasing this week?
Yeah, it's such a variable thing, right? The process and the practice is really individual. And for me, the longer term goal is to really have that daily presence, that moment to moment presence, to really be present in your mind, in your body, to have that awareness. So you really are the consciousness watching your consciousness, right? You are develop that meta thinking capacity to think about your thinking and that sensate capacity to be in your body, in the felt experience, the somatic or bodily experience of being you in the world, because we get so much wisdom from our bodies when we tune in. So perhaps you're in a moment where someone offers you the opportunity to overwork and your brain may say, oh my God, just do it. Just, this could be a really great client. This could be a great referral. And I really just want to get in good here. But your pit of your stomach just says no. That calm, quiet voice of your intuition says no. So we start by tuning in however we can, right? And if for you, that's every night I pause and I journal for 10 minutes and I do expressive journaling, right? So less that 8th grade style of and then we took the school bus to the zoo, right? That's a different thing. It is totally valid and useful as record keeping, but the expressive journaling of really tapping into the feelings, right? in this moment, I felt tingling in my feet. The back of my neck, sort of like the hairs stood up. My belly got queasy. And here's what I thought. And here's how I feel about how I thought. So if you want to start with a journaling, an active practice, dedicated time, go for it.
Yes. Okay. So I really lean into my gut, my intuition, but I have to say I didn't always. So as I became more confident and trusting and having positive proof in the sense that when I didn't listen, exactly what I thought was going to happen happened. And it's like, okay, well, next time. And over the years, I've just committed to double down that I owe it to myself to always trust my gut and to speak up. Now, the next level I would assume for someone is, okay, I hear it. I'm in tune to the gut and the feeling, but how do I find the power, the voice, the confidence to say no when I want to people please? I want to make everybody happy.
Yeah. So the next step is acceptance and then action. So people love to jump to action, like we were saying. And I get that. I'm a Leo, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a doer. And I've gotten the opportunity in this last decade in my own healing work to really slow my roll mentally, physically, the send button on my Gmail, right? To really just slow it down and sit in the acceptance, right? Which can sound like, okay, my brain, my inner children, my protector parts, to use a term from internal family system, these parts of my psyche really want to please this person more than I want to please me. How do I feel about that? Yeah, maybe I feel sad. Maybe I feel angry that I was raised to do that, right? Maybe I feel disappointed in myself that I'm doing it again. And so we get to really pause in that acceptance step to really sit with the complexity of thoughts and feelings that come up as we get to know ourselves and as we get to see our survival patterns, survival habits in vivo, right? Actually in the world. And from there, once we've really given ourselves a chance to sit with it and accept, like, yeah, these are my habits. I don't necessarily love them. But I can accept them, right? Which means not judging them, not pushing them away, not pretending, oh, it's not that bad. I only like people please on days that end in Y.
Yeah. I love that you said don't judge them. So I hear your framework. I've done a lot of personal development work as well.
Yeah.
And when I get to the acceptance, that word freaked me out at first. Like, no, acceptance means it's okay. But when I was able to switch it to say, can I just be non-judgmental about it?
Right.
Can I be curious about it?
Right.
Okay, that's interesting that I think that thought or that I feel that way.
Right.
And so I love your connection. I'll just share that as soon as I left acceptance off, because that word has a meaning to me.
Yeah.
And I said, can I get curious? And can I give myself the gift of not judging?
Beautiful. Yeah. And I think that's so pivotal in all of this work, whether we're talking specifically about productivity, about business, about strategy, about our mind, body, and spirit and healing from codependent thinking. What matters is that you make it your own, right? And not tell the story. There's one way to do this. Right. Yeah. I mean, how many cookie cutter copy pages have we seen from people who are like, I got a sales page looks like XYZ versus, well, but my spirit wants to do it this way. And so too with healing.
Yeah. When we think about observing, when you said, maybe I don't like that, right? It's not necessarily judging. So I just kind of want to dig into this, right?
Yeah.
Like if you find something that you're like, I don't really love that. That's not serving me well anymore. I have found that gives us an empowering option to make a choice to change it.
Absolutely.
And that's where the work and the action, right? Now we lean into it because we can observe something like we're a people pleaser and say, I love people pleasing when it has to do with my children. But I really don't like people pleasing in business. That's not serving me well. It comes to like bite me every single time.
Right.
So now we're kind of left with this opportunity to decide if we even want to take action. Is that true?
Yeah. And again, I would even pause and invite us, and this may sound counterintuitive for a second, but stay with me. I would invite us to love the part of us, the inner child within, that believes that people pleasing is the way to get ahead in business. Right. And so the more we can actually pause and love it up. Right. And I literally talk to myself like this all day long, like, oh, babe, I get it. I get why you think that that's such a great choice to say yes to an opportunity that's not actually an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't actually serve us. But I get it that you think it might. And you don't want anyone to see you as not being grateful or not being easy to work with or on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And darling, we're not doing that anymore. And I thank you for your service to me. And from there, we take action through our words, through the conversation with self to say, we're going to actually do this another way. Let me trust me, right? Trust me as your most loving parent self, as your most loving grown adult, that I know what's right. And I've got our best interest in mind. And you're not wrong, but we're doing it differently now. We're going to say no.
Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
I would guess that we can find ourselves in this place on the same topic for quite a while for some of us, right?
Yes.
So then we have another layer of not judging to think, well, someone else can observe it and not come back to this and make these choices. But I keep finding myself kind of stumbling over the same place. Like I have my places, you have your places.
Sure.
Everyone has their thing that is as long as you continue to choose to show up, I believe, and I do the work, which isn't always fun, but you made it sound amazing to talk to yourself that way. So maybe we can relabel that and it is fun and nice.
I think it's really sweet.
Yeah.
You know, like this morning I walked into my fridge as though someone had moved my fridge in the night. They hadn't. And, you know, I just laughed and I was like, oh, Vic, you're such a silly goose. Whereas like a decade ago, I would have been like, oh, God, look where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I actively, you're talking about choice and agency. And I think that's such a vital feminist issue for humans of all genders, is to reconnect with our agency and choice within ourselves, in our conversations with ourselves. We perpetuate and enact so much violence within ourselves towards ourselves that's just so wildly unnecessary and so painful and harmful. Like, why would I be mean to me at 6 a.m. or ever a.m. or ever p.m.?
I mean, you bring up a good point. Oftentimes we're talking in ways to ourselves that we would never express to someone else that we cared about. Ever. Like you know, you couldn't imagine talking to your loved one or your child in the way that these loops happen in our heads that are just not nice.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we get to honor that at some point, our brains thought they were protecting us, right? Mm-hmm. Because, you know, in perfectionist thinking, the surface level belief is that we want everyone else to think we're perfect. And what I would actually posit is that the recrimination we fear most is our own. Right? We fear that we will disappoint us and then we will be so mean to us. Mm-hmm. And that's why my focus starts with really getting our inner family, our inner children on board, all these parts of our psyche on board to trust us. Right? So when we say, it's okay, you can get a B+ on this Instagram post, they may grumble, but they grumble in my own mind. They're like, yeah, but we could A+. And I'm like, yeah, but we could also not and survive. Right? And now they trust me.
Okay, I don't want to jump because I want to get to action. But you keep mentioning inner family, inner child. Yeah. I'm curious. I don't know anything about this. So I'm certain our listeners can learn some. So when you're referencing that, tell me more.
Yeah. So there's two sort of parallel systems that overlap in a lot of ways. So one is Richard Schwartz's model, which is integrated family systems. I love his work. And I also love the way Susan McConnell talks about it in a somatic or bodily framework. The other work is young, which I am no dyed-in-the-wool Jungian. Don't at me for that. But so this concept of the inner child, which is that there's parts of us, of our psyche, that are at each of our developmental milestones. For some, it's at moments of stress, distress, or trauma. Some, it's just imprints from other moments. And it's, I really think of it metaphorically as these younger parts of our psyche that hold the stories, right? The narratives about how to get through and what's smart to do and what's not so smart to do. Like, honestly, the part of me that wanted like chocolate pudding at 9 p.m. a week ago, it's like, that's not my adult brain. Like, I'll be up for hours if I eat that. But there's a younger part of me that wanted it. And it's like, all right, tenderoni, like, good night.
Right.
And so that internal family systems talks about, in one framework, fragmented parts of self. Another, simply the parts of ourself that developed to meet a certain challenge. So we may have protectors that came up when there was interpersonal conflict or conflict in the household growing up, or if things were challenging. We have managers that manage the way we think and feel and relate to others, firefighters that come out. In my clients and folks managing codependent thinking, I see that as the fixer role. And they're all just sort of overlapping rather, ways of thinking about the different parts of our psyche, which I would posit that we all have, and we can choose to interact with, become friends with, communicate with, or we can let them drive the bus. But I don't really love an 8-year-old driving my bus.
Right. So if you're interacting with them, that's part of the acknowledgement? Is that true? Okay.
Yeah.
So it is
awareness.
in this piece is that you're acknowledging that this part is coming up. And would you say that these parts or fragmented selves generally come up in times of stress?
They could. But also, I was in Maine this summer with my sister and her 2 little boys. She's got 2 under 10, and we were playing in the sand, and I just felt so hyper present. And I felt like a little kid. I was just like making castles and just really, really playing. And it felt like my inner self. And yesterday I took a long walk in the woods, and it also felt like an inner child was just marveling at the beauty of the leaves changing. And, I saw a bunny, So it's not necessarily just some negative thing to reckon with. There's beauty and light and play there too.
Okay. All right. This is like literally such a new concept for me.
Yeah.
So if y'all were looking at my face, I think I look a little shocked. I'm trying to process this in real time. And I really like to take things that I'm learning from guests and kind of find where are those truths or threads in my life. So you just gave an example of your nephews, right? And I also have a niece and nephews. And, my energy changes when they come over, even with my son. It's like, okay, it's like family playtime.
Yeah.
And it seems lighter, and I'm looking for extra activities to do versus on any given day, I'm in mom mode with my son, right? So I can see that trigger of, okay, I want to go to the funner, lighter, on their level connection, and I need to tap into my younger side as well. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to just play that out. So I wonder if we can come up with an example in business. When I think of business, and I'm thinking of even for myself, so I definitely dealt with perfectionism. So that would be one of mine that I have dealt with over the years. And mine was rooted in fear, but I can't necessarily say like I remember anything from my childhood that did that. It's almost like when you were referencing labels early on, I don't remember when I put that label on myself.
Sure.
And then at some point I was like, that doesn't serve me. Like this is stressful, and I don't want the experience and feeling of stress.
Right.
But I'm not quite there to figure out like what part of like my history might have gotten me to experience that on a regular basis. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's just modeled for us. It's just the water we swim in, you know? I know I was tracked into academically rigorous schooling from kindergarten. And so there was always this push to excel. And you're in the gifted and talented program, like we get straight A's here, and I was
wired,
inculcated in that thinking. So yeah, correct. I got wired, neurologically speaking, to believe that that's what was expected of me if I was to be a good person, if I was to be a laudable person, if I was to be a good girl, right? And so these stories just sort of sink in. I think an example that may be helpful, let's try this out of a model of business. Yeah. So I define codependency or codependent thinking as chronically, habitually sourcing our sense of worth and value as humans from everything outside of ourselves and not from within. And so we're constantly looking for someone, something else to say, you're worthy. You're worthy of love, care, air, food, shoes, right? Like you've earned it. You've earned my calling you good enough, right? Pretty enough, smart enough, the right weight, the right kind, right?
Yes.
And so when we're constantly seeking that outside of ourselves, we lose that anchor of trust within ourselves because our opinion matters nothing compared to that of everyone else. And so how do we go into a launch, right? Okay, well, the guy told me this is how I do it. I do 4 webinars followed by 2 paid workshops, followed by 6 emails, followed by, right?
Yes.
And we become these lemmings instead of doing what feels right for us. And then, of course, like, how can you do someone else's plan that doesn't resonate or align for you perfectly? You can't. It's not your plan.
Yes.
So then, of course, you're like, well, that webinar only had 200 people on it. And, like you start to beat yourself up for the minutia because on the macro level, you're not following your heart. You're seeking external validation, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was such a great example because I have done plenty of launches in other people's ways and they fall flat. They don't work. Yeah. I'm actually right in the middle of finishing out the year with a launch and I'm doing it completely different than anyone has told me. And then I just stopped calling it a launch. I was like, actually, I'm just going to do a whole bunch of things that I want to do and I like. Yeah. And maybe people will buy something.
Sure.
But when you were talking, one of the things that had come up for me as a lesson in this last one was we're told, like we're talking online launches. So my business owners are not all just online. So those of you that are not online business owners, stick with me. But one of the strategies is that you give away a whole bunch of bonuses. And this kind of goes back to the worthiness of you questioning how much you're worth or your pricing, right? Even outside of a launch. And when I got to this, I'm like, yeah, I'll give a bonus and it's going to be good, but I'm not giving away all these bonuses because I know what I'm actually offering them to participate in is incredibly valuable. And I didn't have that mindset before because it was like, what should I do because somebody says this is how you do it?
Right.
And not trusting my gut.
Right. Yeah. It makes me think of a client of mine who has a membership that's incredibly successful. And she charges, I'm just going to make up a number, $29.99 a month for this membership where she coaches every week. Her coaches coach several times a week. There's a portal, there's modules, there's webinar, like it's so much stuff. And her fear around raising the price, we got to this in coaching the other day, it took a while, was that if she raised the price, then the perfectionism would kick in of, right, how could it ever be good enough for $49.99, much less the $149 I was pushing her towards? Well, it's just $29, so I don't have to judge it. Whoa.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, and even if I was her, I probably would have taken it another level and said something, and how much more would I have to provide if I raised the price? Not acknowledging that you're providing way more than the value that you're charging right now.
Yeah. Really powerful.
So she was making a business decision or indecision based on an underlying fear of perfectionism.
Yeah, and self-judgment. Right. And that codependent habit of people will stop validating me.
Mm-hmm.
They will stop telling me that my program is amazing. I am amazing, right? I'm going to lose all my external validation if I put this at a price that sustains me and my family.
Because that feels safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The chaos feels safe, which is so often the case coming from a codependent family structure, right? Chaos, drama, worry, insecurity, scarcity. These things all feel safe because we're so used to it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So was she, without sharing details, we're not giving names, but like in this experience, was she aware that it was an underlying belief that was such as perfectionism, or was it a process of like talking it out with you where she's like, oh, no way, I wouldn't have ever connected those two?
Totally. No, the latter for sure, where it just seemed like a business decision. And I was like, kitten, no. This is about your sense of self. And that's often how it happens. So often people come to me and they're like, well, I don't really think I have codependent thought habits. And I'm like,
right.
Let me show you the 27 ways that you do. Yeah.
No, this is really, really good because we're talking about trusting our gut and we're talking about money and our value. But let's shift really quick to time. Ooh. So my clients are giving away time, energy, and attention. And underlyingly, oftentimes it's because they don't value their own time, which means they don't value self in some cases, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm saying they just they don't have boundaries of like someone's showing up late or I'm going to say an hour and my client talks for an hour and a half and I'm not going to say anything, right?
Oh.
It's essentially in business giving money away, but it's really giving your time away.
Yeah.
Versus if you find worthiness and value your time, you're going to say, and our time is up.
Right.
I really, really can't. I look forward to serving you next time. Okay. Anyway, okay. This is like so many, like I have ahas
it's
going
so
off
many
everywhere.
Layers. Yeah.
And that this work that we're doing, while you may realize that you're a perfectionist or a people pleaser, or there's thoughts that you're not worthy show up in one area, once you do the work, you kind of going to have a rippling effect in all areas of your life for the benefits of working through this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll share two tools that I use in my practice, the think, feel, act cycle and the way we set boundaries. So the think, feel, act cycle comes from cognitive behavioral theory. It's nothing new in that, there's nothing new at this point.
Right. What if it works? Keep it.
Keep it. So this is a framework that understands, and this is a thought option. It's a thought exercise, right? I'm not saying this is a kind of universal law, but it's a thought exercise that I find incredibly helpful. So we can recognize that our thoughts spark feelings in our bodies, right? That makes sense. And we take action based on our feelings because nervous system, right? Because science. Our nervous system is not going to allow us to take action unless the feeling is one that supports that action. That's how neurons work. And then from that action, we create a result. And that result for ourselves in our own lives is the outcome we're creating. So if your thought is, gosh, I don't want to cut this client off. I want them to feel really comfortable here. I mean, I'm going to be a half hour late to that bar class or to pick my kid up or to, I don't know, breathe, or I've had to pee for a half hour, whatever it is. Then the action we take is to sit there, often seething inside, full up of resentment, because resentment is when we don't take care of ourselves and blame someone else for it. Ouch.
Yeah.
And the result or outcome we create is an internally negative situation where we are thinking negative thoughts about ourselves and potentially our client. And then we're late for the thing that really actually matters to us. And we've rewritten into our nervous system, into our neurology, we strengthen the neural groove. Like you said, my time doesn't matter. I don't get to have boundaries, right? And this is just literally setting us up for burnout. For a clinical, as a former primary care provider for a decade, like clinical burnout from not taking care of ourselves, plus the UTI. I mean, let's be serious, right? Like how many women just like hold our pee because we don't want to bother anybody. We just hold it and hold it. So we can use the think, feel, act cycle to understand our chronic habitual thoughts, awareness, acceptance, action.
Yeah.
And then sit in acceptance with what is, what has been. And then action is to pick a new thought, one that resonates with our body, not like some toxic positivity BS, right? But a thought that actually sparks a real sensation in our body of alignment.
Did you say toxic BS? You need to say that again. That's great.
Oh, yeah. I don't do toxic positivity. Like, I don't do that total BS.
Like you're saying,
life
don't
sucks.
pick a new thought that does
That's a
not
lie.
resonate. Like your mind cannot wrap your mind around it. It's not going to serve you.
It's just not going to work. And you're lying to yourself. And if our goal is to get our inner children, our inner family on board, trusting us to actually reparent ourselves in a real way, we can't sit around lying to ourselves and think it's going to get us anywhere positive.
Yes.
Right.
And that toxic BS part is that when you try to grasp for a thought that your mind cannot wrap its mind around, then you're in another little loop of, well, why can't that be true for me?
Right.
And then
you
it's like
beat yourself up.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So I love that. Grabbing something that feels possible, but shifts the feeling that you have. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And you sort of take little kitten paw size steps towards it, because baby size steps are a little big sometimes, but we just sort of, centimeter by centimeter, crawl on towards that new thought. For example, in this case, that goal thought may be, my time is of the utmost importance to me, and I will do whatever I need to manage my time the way it works for me, to protect my time. And if someone else doesn't like it, then that's for them to manage. I cannot manage their mind or their thinking. But if you're sitting here and you're like chronically going an hour and a half on your 45 minutes appointments, like, I imagine you're like, yeah, right. Cool.
Yes.
Like, get out of here with that crap. Like, no. So we don't start there, right? We start with, I today in this moment can believe that it is possible that someday soon, I will end most of my appointments close to time. Do you see how much space we give ourselves in there linguistically? Right? And so we write it down and repeat it, because that's how neuroplasticity works, right? What we repeat and repeat and repeat into our brain is what gets concretized and becomes real. And then we just sort of take out one adjective, one adverb, and get closer and closer to that core statement. I will honor my time. My time matters, right? Whatever that core is for you. And then we support that shift by using really solid boundaries. And in my world, what I teach my clients is, if you do X, I will do Y. And we state this as a math problem, because your girl's a nerd, and that's some math. I love being a nerd. If you do X, I will do Y. Right? So we're just clearly saying what we are and are not available for. We're keeping the focus on ourselves, because again, from codependent thinking, people-pleasing thinking, our focus is on everybody else. Rarely us, right? Like my client, my parent, my boss, my Facebook ads manager, like everyone else's schedule. We put the focus back on us, right? And what we want and need for ourselves. The extension of which is our businesses, of course, right? But for ourselves as human mammals. And we state these boundaries without emotion, right? Without guilt, without shame, right? So let me use just the most, give me an example of something to use, of someone like.
Yes. Okay. So boundaries, family members reaching out and expecting to get in contact with you during the business day.
Okay.
Right. Text messages, phone calls, and it's a boundary issue of saying, I actually have a real job. Like, you don't have to say that, but that's the issue, right? Is that they're breaking those boundaries of respecting that you have a work day.
If you text me during the workday, I will text you back when I'm available. That's simple. Deadpan. Simple. There's no emotion, no drama, no chaos, no stress. thanks for texting me. If you text me during the day, I will text you back that evening or on the weekend when I'm available.
So simple.
But it's important. I just wanted to, I hear you. I honor that it's important to you. If you text me during the workday, expect to hear back from me when I'm available.
Yes.
Basta. Done. Listo. Like, no
and
drama.
then just hold that boundary.
Yeah.
Just hold the boundary.
Just hold the boundary.
Yeah.
And that's where, that's where the inner work of looking at your thoughts. Oh, but I don't want her to be upset. I don't want them to think I'm not, amazing and great and always responsive. And really looking at the narratives that you're spinning around yourself in relation to them. Because we think what's happening is, my mom's such a pain in the butt. They always want my time. He's, but it's really, I am not taking care of me. I am thinking that whatever I think they might think about me is more important than what I think about me. Right? So we end up blaming and shaming others, guilting others when it's like, yo, all they did was text you. They can do that. That's okay. That's not, in any criminal statute I'm aware of. Right. But what are you making it mean about what you should be doing?
I have found that when we turn it to ourselves, you've said that several times in the I, is that it is incredibly empowering because now we have a choice. And there's really only one person we can control, and it's ourselves. And so as long as we have that thought that it's someone else's fault, they shouldn't have texted me, shouldn't they have known? I have a good example of me working through the same thing. My husband got off work early for some reason. I had already told him in the morning. I had a really full day, busy day, planned, kind of just laid it out. I get a text that says, hey, you want to play a hooky? Let's have breakfast. Now, I could have said, he doesn't respect my business, my time. He doesn't listen to me, all the things.
Yeah.
Or what was true is he was just super excited to get a bonus day off and wanted to spend time with his wife. And so what I got to do was say, I really would like to have done that. I have appointments this morning. Yeah. Now, 10 years ago, it would have been the whole stories. And again, I needed to bring it back to me. And only when I brought it back to me and how I could respond, I could see that he was just really excited to spend the morning with his wife, right?
Which is really cute and sweet.
It could have turned into a really bad fight had I done that the other example.
How dare you want to see me?
Yeah. How dare you text?
How dare you love me?
I had meetings this morning.
Why do you love me so much? Right?
Totally.
Right? But our brains go to there, which is why we need to keep an eye on them. You know what I mean?
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to let you expand back out to your model. Okay. I just keep asking questions. I had no idea this conversation I was just going to be so intrigued about. I want to share something with regards to the finding the thought that feels right for you.
Yeah.
And it has to do with time. So my affirmation is that I always have time for what matters most.
Yes.
Now, I teach time management. It is a toxic BS thought to say I have time for everything. And I don't have time for everything. I have time for everything that matters most. And that, again, puts me in the driver's seat of choosing what matters most and gives me a huge amount of peace because not everything's going to get my attention. Not everything do I have time to do. But I can get really excited about that. I have plenty of time for all the things, the people, the experiences, the business that I choose to put my time into.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my immediate thought was, that time as our current construct is not how time has always been thought of, right? Like we didn't have a concept of time as this linear thing with 12 hours really globally before the railroads, right? This is a notion, a part of white settler colonialism that was imposed on folks. It is not an inherently natural part of being a human to believe there's 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 12 hours in a day. Wait a second, 24 hours in a day. There you go. My brain can't even say it, right? And so I get where you're going. If you're always doing for everyone else and putting everything ahead of what you need to do or want to do, sure, the day will come to its natural close. You'll get tired. You won't be able to do whatever it is you had planned for yourself. So I get where you're going. And I actually think we can have a more expansive concept of time, in which time is something beyond the linear. Time is infinite. Time is always available. But I don't think that's where you're going.
Yeah,
the quantum notion of time.
But in the world of business, right? There is more to do. There's more people asking for your time, energy, and attention. There's more meetings to it as a business owner. And it is our job to determine what actually gets our attention during this 24 hours or this day.
Wait, was it 12 or 24? I can't
24
remember.
hours in a
24.
day.
Okay, great. Cool. You're right.
24
right.
hours in a day. And it can get stressful for a business owner to think always the thought, there's never enough time.
Of course.
And so that is where I'm meeting my listeners at. I hear you. And I'll tell you how much I hear you. Just this morning, my son and I were sitting on the couch before school, and I said, wouldn't that be interesting if suddenly there was no clocks in the world? We literally had that. And so we just had a little conversation about, well, if it's not 6:30 or we don't know it's 6:30, you can't be late for school. What would we do? How do we navigate? He's 11 and he loves these types of conversations, but just to question, time as we know it wasn't always time as we know it.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get you back to, you were doing your feelings create thoughts and thoughts create action and action creates results.
Right. So we understand that we have a thought, a cognition, most often a habitual one that creates that feeling, that sensation within us. And then we take action and create a result. And so we get to intervene on our own behalf anywhere along that process. So if the result that you are chronically creating for yourself is that you're not getting what you want to get done in the time you'd like to get it done, you can work backwards, right? So if the result you want to create is getting this list done in a way that feels peaceful, self-loving, kind, efficient, and effective, what are the actions you need to take? In order to be able to take those actions, what's the feeling you need to create? Perhaps it's motivation, which, by the way, doesn't come by lightning strike. It's a feeling, which means you create it with your thoughts. What do I have to be thinking in order to create this feeling for myself? Perhaps I am capable of getting this done in this time frame, right? And then really mantra-like, repeating that thought into your psyche, into your body, and really bringing it into your body as a belief that you can feel, as an experience, as a felt sensation.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So now we're going to take that framework, and you were working us through another framework when we initially started. And so we stayed really good in the awareness, right?
Yeah.
Like lots of awareness, which I believe many of us stay in the awareness state for a while. Mm-hmm. So now it's action. What does action look like? And how do we know when the time to take action or not take action is?
Yeah, well, I think what does action look like? I mean, I think that's so individual, right? I think the first action I recommend folks taking is doing thought work and doing somatic practices. So actually writing out thoughts, feelings, actions, results, and really getting concrete on what you need to be thinking, feeling, acting, or doing, and the results you're going to create. So I don't time block tasks, I time block results. Right. So I don't write podcast time, right? Because I have my own podcast. I don't write, podcast time. I say episode 142, written and recorded.
So powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm keeping my mind, my everything on that result. So often really taking action is more of this meta work, more of this work of really being in touch with ourselves and being really intentional and thoughtful and asking, what are the thoughts that serve me here? What are the thoughts, feelings, actions, and results that I really want to make prominent in my mind and my life? And then somatic practices. So getting in touch with our body and asking our body, why am I not doing this? What is it that I want to do? What is it you want to do? Right? Mm-hmm. In that move to be ever more present, we need to involve the body.
Okay. I'm so glad you answered that. And I asked because I assumed action was saying no to the client's request or the actual result of in that moment when we wanted to make a different decision or show up differently. So I'm really, really glad that I asked. So this really is a framework for all the work we do so that we show up differently next time.
Yeah. And then once you are aligned in your thoughts, feelings, you will take the action you need to take, such as saying no, such as saying, I'm not available for that. I'm not taking interviews right now. I'm not taking clients right now, whatever it may be. Right. So you can create that result of living a life that's really deeply aligned with your values, your wellness, your mental and physical health, on and on.
And I think we both want that for everyone, right?
Sure,
as business
absolutely.
owners. Yeah, I just really, this is why this conversation was so important. And I was really looking forward to it because I want the businesses to serve the business owners instead of the business owners feeling a slave to the business and feeling like they're giving it all to them and that they've normalized stress and overwhelm and negative thoughts, that the work, if you're willing to do it, can really, really transform your relationship with your business as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you really can, for example, I'll take the word overwhelm. Overwhelm is optional.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Just let that soak in, right? Overwhelm. We think that it's like part and parcel of being who we are, being driven entrepreneurs with a desire to change the world. But that doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right.
It's optional.
It's optional. Overwhelm, same as regret, right? Same as, thinking failure is a bad thing. All these thoughts and the feelings they create are fully optional. No one says you have to take them on, and you don't have to borrow them from anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we don't need to hold on to them. So if that's been your word to describe your life, you feel free to opt out.
Drop that one. Yeah, let that one go.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're coming to the end, Victoria, and I want to respect your time.
Thank you.
Can you just share with our listeners if they can want to hear about your podcast, the work you do? I'm sure that they're totally interested in what you've had to say today. How do they reach out to you?
Yeah. So my podcast is called Feminist Wellness, and it's for humans of all the possible genders, which are infinite. You can find me on the gram at Victoria Albina Wellness. I give good gram. And if you head on over to victoriaalbina.com, my website, right at the top, you can download a suite of free meditations and nervous system orienting exercises. There's also an inner child meditation in that package, and it's free just for you. So go check it all out.
Excellent. And we also have special links that we'll have in the show notes and we'll share on social media as well so that you can make sure you can find Victoria in all the places. Thank you so much for really having this time in this conversation. You opened it up saying that this is a conversation that's not being had enough. And it's been my honor to have you on Productivity Straight Talk to have this conversation because I agree it's been needed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Productivity Straight Talk. I sure hope you found it to be valuable and insightful. The conversation with Victoria was incredibly valuable to me. And this is the work that I do. These are the experiences that I hear, is that we often find ourselves in these traps of labeling ourselves and saying that this is just the way that it is. And I really, really loved Victoria's approach in acceptance and challenging what you may have normalized for yourself and acknowledging that there may be something that you are doing in a behavior or the way that you're showing up in relationships that no longer serves you and that is okay. We get to make different decisions. And that is such an empowering thought. That is so empowering to know that if we even recognize the fact that potentially our interactions with others are the very thing that is sabotaging us in our attempts to live our best life, our vision of success, achieving our goals. That really shows up in our day-to-day of the conversations and the boundaries we have with our clients and with our team members, with our family members. So in today's episode, like every other episode of Productivity Straight Talk, I am going to ask you, how are you going to take action? No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. And taking action in this episode may look like committing to observe the way you interact and observing the thoughts, observing the words that you choose, observing the boundaries that you either hold or you don't hold. And once you observe them, asking yourself, does this serve you? Is this something that you want for yourself? And if you find that you don't, choosing a different decision. I would love to support you further. If you are looking for coaching, training, and accountability to reach your goals, I would love to support you inside my Leverage Lab program. To learn more about it and to join us, head on over to amberdelagarza.com/leverage lab. Or wherever you're listening to this podcast, tap on the show notes, click the link, and head on over to amberdelagarza.com/leverage lab. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.